Hello everyone, this is Nate. This is going to be more of my What is League series. And today we're going to be talking about a very basic but very important part of League, and that is warding. So we talked last time about the very basics, which is, hey, push lanes, kill towers, kill champions, kill nexus, win game. Today we're going to be talking about a way to be safe while doing that, or at least more safe while doing that. So you'll notice that you have each person can buy a trinket. Those can place wards. What we're going to do today is use this, which is a blue Sightstone. And again, what this does is you start out with 3 charges, and each of those places a ward. You can only have 3 of these regular wards out on the map at any time. So the minute you play a fourth, the first disappears. So that's important because the tendency, especially for someone like me, is to just spam wards, and then you're left with very few, and you find yourself limited. So it's better to be strategic with this sort of thing. So what we're going to do, I'll actually buy this as well, we'll talk about that in a bit, is I'll show you some of the very basics of warding. So first off, what is a ward? A ward is a thing that you put on the ground that reveals that area in a line of sight around itself for, I think it's 150 seconds. 150 seconds. So why is that important? Well, it's very difficult to kill something you can't see, and it's also very difficult to avoid something that you don't see coming. And again, this is another bot game, so this is not going to be a sort of tutorial on advanced warding techniques, but what it is going to do is go over the very basic positions for warding. So we'll start on the bottom because most wards are placed by supports, and most supports are in the bottom lane. So here we go. So you start out, you have your enemy champions doing their thing, pushing the lanes, and everything that your minions can see, you can see. And everything that is not kind of directly within these lanes and near your minions is fog of war. So if you can go into a place like this, you can say, all right, now I can see. The problem is you're not near any minions, you're not really contributing. So what you can think is, all right, well, if the enemy jungler comes through, or an enemy mid laner, or an enemy of any sort comes through, and you say, oh, I want to see them coming before they can do damage. So place a ward. Now we can go back to lane and do whatever we want, and for the next 150 seconds, as long as we're looking, we will be able to find vision of this spot. So that's pretty cool. So that's one spot that's a pretty generic spot. This was designed to be a place from which, or actually through which, you cannot see. So it's designed to limit vision. Same thing here. Because if this bush wasn't here, the enemy jungler could come zooming down. You're all pushed up against the enemy turret and says, aha, I'm behind you. You're out of position. Now I can kill you. However, what you can then say is like, all right, well, I want to not be caught by surprise. So I'll put a ward. What's this shenanigans? Hey. So those are 2 of the kind of default warding positions for bot lane. Very simple, very intuitive. There's a bush here, I can't see in that bush, put a ward in that bush, now you can see in that bush, sort of thing. So that's pretty straightforward. These side bushes can be useful, particularly if you're looking to maintain lane pressure. And we can talk more about this as I do replays of games with myself as a full-out support with an actual AD carry and so forth. But suffice it to say, generally, these bushes are not as important as these. However, they can be quite useful in deflating an advantage or gaining an advantage. For instance, if the enemy keeps peeking in and out and they keep doing silly things and you can't see them, put a ward in that bush. But again, you only have a certain number. So that's spot lanes. Those are some basic warding spots. So whenever you go back to base, your trinkets will respawn by default, so that doesn't matter. But when you go back to base, your Sightstone fills back up, and you can go do more epic things. So we're going back to mid lane, coming in, and again, say you're a mid laner. Most mid laners, in fact, almost all mid laners, will not buy a Sightstone. However, the same principle applies for trinkets as well. So again, the point of this video is to say, okay, well, what are the basics of warding? What is the point? What are some basic avenues? Well, again, these bushes were designed to limit vision. So if you're sitting in mid lane, you think, well, I feel pretty safe, and then all of a sudden, ta-da, someone comes to the bush. That's not a good thing. So what we can do is place a ward. Now, what we can do is push more safely, because we know that the enemy can't come through this way, or at very least, if they do, we will see them. So an enemy that is seen is an enemy you can prepare for, and that's not nearly as scary as the enemy that you have no idea of their whereabouts. Again, the same thing, but mirrored on the bottom here. Oops, hit both wards there. But again, same thing. Now I have both bushes warded. I know that the jungler cannot, unless they're camouflaged or stealth, cannot come through this and cannot come through that without me seeing him. And that is pretty important. So again, that's the very basics of mid lane. So, running a bit low on wards, and again, the temptation is to just spam down wards until you feel safe, and then kind of wait and see what happens. But that's not always the best route. Another good place to ward is here, because again, once this ward runs out, we can, actually let's do that. So let's do this. Again, this is say we're in mid lane, and we think, all right, I want to push up or I want to fight, but I can't do that because I don't know what's coming. So we can't ward here. However, what we can also do, and once I get back, we'll show this, is there are kind of indirect ways to view the same path, to view the same place. So again, our objective is we want to get vision. Vision helps us see things. Seeing things helps us avoid dying, and that is a good thing. So let's scurry back to lane. So we talked about bot. We talked about these being important, but not vital, and these being probably the two most important spots. Again, if you are defending from the top, then it'll be more important to ward here, because the enemy jungler will be coming from his jungle, coming through. If you are defending this, it'll be more important generally to ward here, because the enemy jungler will be coming from his jungle. And again, we'll get more into this about, you know, what is a jungle and what does it mean and all that stuff. So for now, let me kill these guys. So we're now mid lane again, and say we're thinking, all right, well, this is scary. I don't want to get jumped by a jungler. Well, what we can also do is another position is put one right there, this little bush here again, which is designed to create uncertainty. Then we can go back to lane, and we say, aha, now we can see pretty much what we need to see. And we'll see on the mini map this little island of vision here. Again, it's not as complete. There could be theoretically someone jumping over this wall or skirting by, But again, the idea is, what is a place that I can ward? The advantage of this here is that it'll see more from this direction, and it'll give more warning. For instance, if I ward just in this bush where I am, and I see someone, I have less time to react than if I place it here and I see them coming down. So those are some basics for mid. And again, the same type of idea is down here. What is this guy doing? Who knows? Oh, Karthus getting frisky. So another way to ward, if we think about it, is again, this ward, what does it help us do? Well, it helps us see people coming from this direction. Well, we can also put a ward here, which does essentially the same thing. It gives us a bit more advanced warning. It'll help us against people coming in through this avenue. However, it is theoretically possible for someone to jump over this wall or do something sneaky. But again, for the most part, this ward will achieve much the same thing. Give us a bit more time. So that's mid lane. Again, the very basics. There's a lot more to warding, and we can talk about that when we actually start going into games that be playing against actual people. But for now, we are going to go take a quick trip back, and we're going to go to top lane because the teleport's back up. So, talked about bot, talked about the various bushes in the immediate vicinity, talked about mid, talked about the various bushes. And so now what we're going to do is get some more epic things. Where is it here? Okay, I've totally forgotten how to build this item. Yeah, whatever, I'll just go AP. It's boring, but what are you going to do? So, heading back to top lane. So, let's talk about top lane. Top lane is generally a one-on-one lane, so you generally will not have someone warding for you if you're up here. But there's a couple different bushes that are going to be key. Again, it's a mirrored setup, or a similar setup rather, to bot lane, with these bushes that can provide some interesting kind of dueling potential. But what we're going to focus on is these river bushes. So again, if you're up in lane, stirping around, you think, gosh, I hope no one ganks me from the river. Well, what you can do is put a ward there. So if I put a ward here, for instance, now I can see pretty much to the edge of my vision, and I know that no one's sneaking up on me. A different way to go about that, or sometimes a way you can do as well, is to put a ward here. What this will do is this will give, again, more warning if someone's coming up through here. If we see them here, we'll have more time to react than if we see them here. Not generally a huge deal, but it can be important. This also gives us access to see if the top laner from their team is heading down to mid, or if a jungler is coming in to gank, or anything like that. So these two bushes are the kind of default places to ward. Now again, the downside of this is that it does not see anything from the river, besides a very limited amount. But if we have a ward here, it will not see anything coming up through here. So the enemy jungler could come up through the lane or do any sort of nastiness. So those are the very basic bushes to ward. Again, these top wall bushes, they can be useful in certain scenarios, but for the most part, for the basics, you just want to be kind of not afraid of the enemy jungler. And hello. Those are the basic places that you want to go. Let's get away from there. I didn't need to flash. Panic flash. So, let's go heal. and come back. So those are the fundamentals of warding. What is a ward? A ward lets you see things. If you can see the enemy, you know where they are. That means you can prepare for them. There are very few things as frustrating as trying to fight a battle where you don't know where your enemy is. So it is very, very important to, that's what I wanted, to be able to place wards intelligently and strategically. So, let's see. Yeah, we got some time. What I'll do is I'll actually go through some slightly more advanced positions for wards, not advanced in terms of complication, but in terms of placement, as in kind of geographically farther away from your home base there. So for instance, we're in mid lane, we think, all right, well, I don't want to get killed by a jungler. So let's go up here. And this is again another very common one. Put a ward right there. So again, we can go back to lane. And we can, all right, well, if the jungler comes, if he comes through here, comes through there, I will see him. I will not die to him. It is possible to squeeze through there. So that was a bit of an imprecise warding location. So if you want, what you can do, put on the very tip, just the tip. And now you can see pretty much what you need to see. On a small note, one thing that can be very helpful when you're placing wards, if you press, for me, the item slot is 1. Now it'll be 2. Now it's 1. If you press and hold that, you can see, all right, well, this is the place the area in which I can place a ward. You notice the cursor is blue. If I move it over a bush, it's now green. So if it is blue, it is not in the bush. It will not see in the bush. If it is green, it will be in the bush. It will see in the bush. There are some kind of weird bugs that do happen, but for the most part, it's nice. That is the general rule. Oop. So that is one way for mid to ward. So we can go down here, we can do the same thing. Let's say, okay, well now I'm in mid lane. I don't want to get ganked by the jungler. I don't want to be attacked by anybody I can't see. Just place a ward here. What this will do, does much the same thing, is okay, controls this route and this route here. Also anybody coming up from the river if they want to surprise you in mid lane. So what we're doing is we're creating zones of intelligence, zones that we can see, places that we know one way or the other if the enemy is there or not. Because if all 5 people are sitting on a ward here, you can be pushing bottom without problem because you know exactly where they are. Then again, if they're all off vision and you still have these wards up, you know if nothing else, they're not here, they're not there, they're not there. So it can be very, very important to make sure to keep things warded. So that's one ward place a year. Again, what we're doing is we're just setting up places where we want to be able to see. It's kind of a short-term cheat code. So let's head up. Actually, let's get more wards and use our teleport. The other very, very important thing to remember for wards is that you can teleport to a ward. Most supports, I would say all supports, don't take teleport. So that's something that you won't have to think about for yourself. However, it will be important to think about when you want to be laning and to do strategy in that sense. So let's pretend we're mid lane. Let's zoom on out of here. So okay, we've gone over this spot here. One thing we can do, this is more dangerous because it's going to take us closer to the enemy, but we can place a ward here. This will again catch anything moving through here, bad guys or good guys. We can place a ward here, place a ward there. And what this does is it gives us a nice, very clear picture of the top of the jungle. Now again, we can only have 3 wards out, so if we put all our stuff there and we think, gosh, I'm doing such a good job, and then the enemy says, hey, we're all bottom and you have no idea what we're doing, that's not quite as fun and interesting. However, basically anywhere in this middle top jungle that their team goes, we can see, which is super important. So again, we talked about this ward here. I put one here. What this will do is it'll give us a pretty good idea of where their enemy jungle is. Now again, as I do that, important thing to remember, as I place these wards, these disappeared. They didn't time out. I actually replaced them. And now I have no more wards. So if you want to be strategic about where you ward and when you ward, you have to keep track of how many wards that you've placed. So that's the basics of warding. Again, it as with most questions answered at an in-depth level, the answer of where should I ward is, well, depends. Depends what your team is, depends what time of the game it is, it depends what kind of team comp they have, it depends what you want to do. Do you want to kill them all? Do you want to just not die for a while? Do you want to stall the game out? Do you want to just farm for 90 minutes and then hope things go well from there? It depends. But in general, the point of a ward is to find out where the enemy is, or at very least find out where the enemy isn't. And if you can do that, then you can plan a strategy. For instance, this Karthus doesn't know I'm here. Now he does, and now he's dead. So it's vision is key, intelligence is key. And these guys are going to town. So let's buy real quick, probably our last buy of the game. And again, I want to emphasize this is not a high level competition. This is versus bots. This is not intended to showcase gameplay or anything kind of super crazy like that. Let's go attack speed because I'm crazy. What this is intending to do is give you an idea of some of the options and some of the basics of what it means to ward. Again, as a support main, as someone who plays support almost all the time, and it is a surprisingly important thing, and it's often underrated. People will very rarely say, "Oh, good ward, good ward." They'll say things like, "Holy crap, where'd they come from? We had no idea they were there." In all levels of games, you'll hear that time and time again. Get wards, get wards. So it's super important. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use the rest of this time to kind of just push down mid and talk about what we've gone over. So we talked about the basics of bot lane, these 3 places here. We talked about, that was actually a reflex ward right there. We'll get into that in a separate video. We talked about the purpose of wards. We talked about how to get wards. Everyone can buy a trinket. We'll talk more about the other trinkets as well. We talked about the need for precise warding. And again, to illustrate the point that I made earlier, depending on when in the game it was, if we're in the laning phase, we need to ward around this basic area, again, assuming we're in bot lane. Now that the game has progressed quite a bit, we know that most of the game is at a different pace and a different place than when it was in the laning phase. So now what we need to do is figure out places where we can put wards to show where the enemy team is. So, in this extreme advanced situation, we can safely assume that the enemy is going to be mostly bottled up into their base. So we got to put wards in and around their base. Now, important thing to remember is turrets will be able to see wards. Wards are by usually invisible, but turrets, for instance, if the enemy was here, they could actually see that. Now that it's dead, it doesn't matter. So you want to kind of find places to give you as much information as you can, and that are not going to be found. And again, part of the intricacies of warding at the more intricate level is actually, we won't have time to go into that now, but one of the intricacies is you can buy trinkets that will actually destroy enemy wards. They'll destroy yours. And that can be part of the game of vision warfare. You watch particularly the highest level teams, one of the foremost and most important things you can do is to deny enemy vision. If you can deny enemy vision, you deny them information, they play a different pace, they play more scared, they play more cautious. So that was that. So again, this is the very basics of warding, some basic spots to put them, places to put them, that sort of thing. There will be more on warding, more on supporting, all that fun stuff. For now, thanks for watching. If you have any more questions, please put them in the comments. If you're interested in what I'm doing, please subscribe. And if not, well, either way, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.